What if I told you that the most beautiful love story of your life could begin not in the flush of youth, but in the wisdom of your later years? Imagine this. After decades of living, loving, losing, and learning, you find yourself standing on the edge of something extraordinary, a connection so deep, so real, that it defies everything you thought you knew about relationships. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario. It's happening right now for countless people over 65 who are rewriting the rules of love and companionship. They're proving that romance doesn't retire, it evolves, and it's never too late to experience joy, intimacy, and freedom in ways you may have never imagined. Loneliness doesn't always scream its presence. Sometimes it whispers softly into our lives, creeping in when we least expect it. Maybe it shows up as silence during dinner, or as the realization that phone calls from loved ones have slowed to occasional check-ins. Perhaps it's the feeling of being invisible, even though you're surrounded by family or friends. For many older adults, loneliness isn't about physical solitude, it's about emotional distance. But here's the truth. We are wired for connection. Real, meaningful connection doesn't disappear with age. It becomes even more vital. What changes is how we seek it, how we nurture it, and how we allow ourselves to be seen without fear of judgment or rejection. The idea of starting over can feel daunting, especially after years of building a life only to face loss or change. Whether you've been widowed, divorced, or single for decades, the prospect of inviting someone new into your world might seem impossible or unnecessary. Yet what if I told you that love after 65 doesn't look like it did in your 30s or 40s? It's not about merging households, finances, or routines. Instead, it's about finding closeness without sacrificing your independence. It's about sharing laughter, warmth, and emotional intimacy without pressure to conform to outdated expectations. In the next few moments, we'll explore why this kind of love works better later in life, how boundaries become acts of love rather than barriers, and why emotional intimacy trumps labels every time. By the end, you'll understand why love isn't something that fades with time. It's something that grows richer, deeper, and more fulfilling when approached with grace, honesty, and intention. So let's dive in together, because the best part of your journey might still be ahead. The loneliness no one talks about. You don't need to live alone to feel lonely. Loneliness after 65 often isn't about being physically isolated. It's about feeling emotionally unseen. Your schedule slows down, the phone rings less frequently, and the people you used to talk to daily now check in once a month, if that. One afternoon, I visited Clara, a vibrant 71-year-old woman living in a cozy apartment outside Phoenix. Her home was warm and inviting, filled with photos of her grandchildren, handmade quilts, and the comforting aroma of banana bread cooling on the counter. "I'm not alone," she said, "but sometimes I feel invisible." She went on to explain that everyone around her had their own lives now, and she didn't want to burden them with her needs. Clara's words struck a chord. Emotional loneliness is harder to name because it doesn't shout, it murmurs. It creeps in when you eat dinner in silence or catch yourself talking to the TV just to hear your own voice. Despite these feelings, many older adults hesitate to admit they're lonely. They worry about sounding ungrateful or weak. But the reality is, we are hardwired for connection. Connection doesn't vanish with age, it transforms. Finding companionship at this stage isn't about needing someone to complete you. It's about sharing your days with someone who listens, understands, and genuinely enjoys your company. Loneliness shrinks our world, but companionship brings it back to life. When you connect with someone who sees you, truly sees you, it opens doors to experiences you thought were closed forever. Walks in the park, shared meals, quiet conversations over coffee. These small moments carry profound meaning when they're shared with someone who values your presence. If you've ever felt like no one truly sees you anymore, know this: you deserve to be seen. You deserve to share your life with someone who appreciates the richness of who you are. The fear of starting over. Starting over at 66 or 76 can feel like standing at the edge of a cliff. You've already jumped off once before. Maybe you lost a spouse, endured a painful divorce, or simply spent years alone, believing that love was no longer possible. Alan, a 73-year-old man I spoke with, shared his struggle. Widowed for over a decade, he admitted, "I still sleep on my side of the bed. I still pour 2 cups of coffee in the morning out of habit, and I still feel like I'd be betraying her if I met someone new." His words reflect a common fear among older adults, that moving forward means dishonoring the past. For others, it's not grief holding them back, it's weariness. "I don't want to go through the whole getting to know you thing again," one woman told me. She's right. No one wants to relive awkward small talk or navigate complicated emotions all over again. But here's the secret. Love after 65 doesn't have to mirror what you experienced in your younger years. You're not building a life from scratch. You're inviting someone into a life that's already rich with experience, values, and identity. You're not trying to impress anyone, you're simply trying to connect. When you approach love with clarity, boundaries, and gratitude, it transforms the experience entirely. Starting over isn't really starting over, it's starting smarter. With wisdom comes the ability to recognize what truly matters and what doesn't. You learn to prioritize emotional intimacy over superficial charm, mutual respect over fleeting attraction. Suddenly, the prospect of meeting someone new feels less intimidating and more exciting. Why? Because you're bringing your whole self to the table, scars and all, and trusting that the right person will cherish you for exactly who you are. Redefining companionship. The old blueprint for companionship often came with a checklist. Move in together, share expenses, merge routines, make it official. But increasingly, older adults are discovering a better way, one that emphasizes spaciousness, respect, and purpose. Diane and Peter, both in their late 60s, exemplify this shift. Together for 6 years, they've chosen to maintain separate homes. Diane keeps her space, Peter keeps his, and they see each other 3 or 4 times a week. They travel together, share dinners, and talk on the phone every night. "We don't need to share a bathroom to be in love," Diane laughed. "I like my space, and so does he." Their relationship proves that connection doesn't require compromise. Instead, it thrives on design, building a partnership that fits who you are now, not who you were decades ago. Boundaries aren't obstacles, they're architecture. They give relationships shape and strength, allowing 2 people to meet whole and grounded without either one feeling swallowed up. When both partners can say no without fear, their yes becomes infinitely more meaningful. This new model of companionship also allows for greater intimacy. Without the pressure to blend every aspect of your lives, you create space for genuine closeness. You share what you choose to share, hold on to what makes you unique, and build a bond based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Love doesn't demand that you erase your edges to fit inside someone else's story. It celebrates those edges, honoring the beauty of individuality within a shared connection. Emotional intimacy over labels. At this stage in life, many people realize something profound. The deepest connections often have no name. You might not call each other boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife, but when something good happens, they're the first person you call. When you're scared or unsure, their voice steadies you. That's love. That's companionship. Joanne, a 68-year-old woman, met a man named Tom through a weekly walking group. Every Thursday, they'd meet for lunch and a stroll. After nearly 3 years, they still hadn't labeled their relationship. "We're not a couple," Joanne said with a smile, "but I haven't missed a Thursday since we met." Their connection wasn't built on status, it was built on presence. They knew each other's routines, health struggles, hopes, and disappointments. Most importantly, they gave each other space to be fully themselves. Joanne explained, "I've been a wife, I've been a caretaker. I don't want either of those roles again. I just want someone who listens, someone who lets me cry without trying to fix me." Emotional intimacy like this is freeing because it rejects societal pressures to define or justify your relationship. You don't need matching rings or joint accounts. What you need is trust, warmth, and the safety to share what's real without fear of judgment. Love after 65 becomes less about roles and more about resonance. Do your hearts understand each other? Do your lives have space for one another? If the answer is yes, then the label doesn't matter. As Joanne put it, "If anyone asks what we are, I just say, we're something good, something that works for us." Why this works better after 65. There's a quiet magic to relationships that begin later in life. They're often less dramatic, less complicated, and more deeply satisfying. Why? Because you're no longer trying to build a life from scratch. You've already lived so much. You've made mistakes, learned lessons, and gained perspective. Love after 65 isn't about checking boxes. It's about choosing joy. Dennis, a 70-year-old man, summed it up perfectly. When I was young, I wanted a woman who was beautiful, clever, and exciting. Now, I want someone I can laugh with in the morning, read with in the afternoon, and sit beside at night without needing to talk. There's wisdom in that simplicity. In your younger years, relationships often came with immense pressure. Marriage, mortgages, raising children, career sacrifices. Now most of that is behind you. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. When two people meet in this space, free from old expectations, something extraordinary happens. There's less pretending, less performance. You show up with your full story, scars and all, and you find someone who doesn't flinch, who doesn't try to change you. They just listen, accept, and stay. This kind of companionship can be more nourishing than anything youthful romance offered, because after 65, you've stopped rushing. You savor small joys, a walk after dinner, a shared memory, a quiet morning where nothing hurts too much. You're more emotionally honest, having seen people come and go, understanding how fragile connection can be and how precious it truly is. Most importantly, you're no longer afraid to be alone. That changes everything. When you're not desperate, you're discerning. You choose connection because you want it, not because you need it. And that makes the bond stronger, steadier, and more joyful. Love works better after 65 because you're finally ready to love with grace, humor, patience, and boundaries. You're not chasing intensity, you're cultivating peace. And peace, when shared with someone who truly sees you, might just be the richest kind of love there is. Final thoughts. You deserve this kind of love. If you've made it this far, take a moment to pause. You've walked through truths that many carry quietly in their hearts. You've seen that love doesn't end after 65. It evolves. It softens, deepens, and becomes more honest, deliberate, and free. We've talked about loneliness, the fear of starting over, the importance of boundaries, and the power of emotional intimacy. You've met real people who found connection without compromise, who learned how to say, I care for you, but I won't lose myself to do it. Maybe you saw yourself in their stories. Maybe you remembered a time when love felt like pressure and wondered what it might feel like if it felt like peace. Or maybe you've been alone for so long that you stopped believing it could happen again. But here's the truth, it can. Not because you need it, but because you deserve it. Love at this stage isn't about rescuing or rebuilding, it's about recognizing. It's about seeing someone across a table, a walking trail, or a book club and feeling that spark of me too. That whisper of you get it. That quiet pull that says, I like being myself when I'm around you. When that happens, don't rush it. Don't try to fit it into someone else's box. Let it unfold in a way that makes your soul feel safe. Love after 65 isn't about milestones, it's about meaning. There are no rules anymore. You get to decide what companionship looks like. It might be living together or apart, holding hands in the grocery store, or texting goodnight every evening. It might be long road trips or short weekly lunches. It might be silence, laughter, or both. What matters most is that you feel free to be yourself and loved exactly as you are. If this resonates with you, I invite you to ask yourself, what kind of companionship do I want? Forget what others think. Forget what society says is appropriate for your age. Ask your heart, what would make me feel alive, respected, and safe? Maybe it's someone to sip tea with on rainy afternoons, someone to call when your knee aches, or someone who makes you laugh again. Whatever it is, it's valid. You've spent enough years serving others, compromising, and caring. Now it's time to listen to what you need. And maybe, just maybe, there's someone out there waiting to give it. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below. Share what love without compromise looks like for you. If you know someone who might benefit from hearing this, send it their way. You never know the door it might open. Subscribe to our channel and join our community, where we talk about grief, joy, connection, and freedom with respect and warmth. Tap the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for being here, for giving your attention, and for staying open to new ways of loving, even when the world tells you it's too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. You are worthy of connection, warmth, affection, and being chosen, not out of duty, but out of joy. The second act of your life is still unfolding, and who knows, the most beautiful chapter might just begin with a smile from across the room, a walk in the park, or a comment left right here.